shiur this week. I'm going to also remind just two quick reminders to everyone that those who are interested in giving want to dedicate the learning in the shiurim, so they can do that. The links are in the emails that are sent out every week. And also, as we start the shiur, so just to help the smooth progression, so I want you to mute their microphones, and then only if there are questions, but that way there won't be any background noise. So, Rav Katzin, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Maybe a few words about the program. 2 words about the program. This program. It's a weekly shiur.
Program. Yes, this program is a weekly shiur. It's been running for the past 8 years. Usually would be taking place physically in Nitzanim Shul, and we're all, I think, waiting for the opportunity to go back to that. But meanwhile, we've seen that the participants are very happy to continue. We do it online. There are the advantages of not having to fight traffic to get there.
Yeah.
And it works. We have every Thursday we have 2 shiurim. It's
so every week someone else.
So there's some of the speakers are regulars that will give classes every 3-4 weeks, and then we have a handful of guest speakers every semester, such as yourself, to spice it up and make it a little more interesting. Mm-hmm. And we're always happy to have the opportunity to bring Torah Eretz Yisrael in English at a high level, and for people who are.
I don't promise high level. Don't promise high level. Okay, I finish time is 10:15.
You have 10:15, and then the 10:30 is already the second shiur.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for Zev. I would like to, first I've said it's a real privilege for me to teach the people of Yerushalayim. What can I teach the people of Yerushalayim? I want to begin by sharing with you a story that took place, I think, 25 years ago when I was a young Rosh Yeshiva Tichonit in Ranana. And you know, part of the job of a Rosh Yeshiva is sometimes enter the classes and watch the Ramim teach and see if they do the work properly. I think it was a few days before Purim, and I entered a class, and the Rav taught a short sugya in Masechet Megillah. And I would like to share with you and learning this short sugya. And I just will tell you that he taught very nicely, and the students were excellent, maybe because of the fact that Rosh Yeshiva entered the class, maybe not, I don't know. But when he finished and the lesson, the students didn't ask anything. And for me, it was a real surprise. I was, I thought that they should have asked a very important general question about the lesson. And this question was not asked. And afterwards, when I sat with the Rav, I asked him, don't you think that this question is a very important question and it should be asked? And he agreed. Maybe later I will explain why I think or assume that this question was not asked. But I told the Rav, I want to come a day later and teach again this sugya. And what I want to tell you now is that when, in a few moments, when I'm going to teach this sugya, if you are not going to ask this question, I am going home. The truth is I am at home, but I'll stay at home. And I would tell you what does this subject deal with. Well, you know that the Megillah describes that Achashverosh made a feast, a mishte. But not only that the Megillah describes us this fact, but also the Megillah tells us the location. Where was it? A special location. Bachatzar Ginat Bitan HaMelech. And the question that the Gemara deals with is, what is the meaning of Chatzar Ginat Bitan HaMelech? And the Gemara tells us that there was a dispute about this question, and there were three different interpretations of the meaning of Bachatzar Ginat Bitan HaMelech as follows. This is the Gemara with English translation, Bachatzar Ginat Bitan HaMelech. Yeah? And there was a dispute between the Gemara says about the interpretation of the meaning of Bachatzar Ginat Bitan HaMelech, and there was a dispute between two very important Amoraim, Rav and Shmuel. One of them, Stomer Rav, said, Hara'ui lachatzer lachatzer, hara'ui lagina lagina, hara'ui labitan labitan. That means that those who were worthy and of the court were brought to the court. Those who were worthy of the garden were brought to the garden, and those who were worthy of the palace were brought to the palace. And I don't know exactly what is the difference between these three places. But what we can see is that, according to Rav, there were three different places, three different locations of this one feast. This is Rav. Shmuel gives another interpretation. And according to Shmuel, and the meaning of Bachatzar Gitan Binat Gitan HaMelech is that at the beginning, and Hoshivan Bachatzer Velo Ichziktam. And the meaning that Achashverosh and set them, the guests, in the court, but it could not accommodate them. There was no enough place there. Therefore, he put them in Bagina, in another place, but then also, and two, it could not accommodate them. There was no place there either, until finally, and he brought them into the palace, and that it was large enough to accommodate them. This is the second question, the second interpretation, sorry. But there is also a third one. Bematnita Tana, in a Beraita, and a different interpretation that says that Hoshivan Bechatzer, he set them in the court, Ufatach lahem shnei ptachim, echad lagina ve'echad labitan. This is the interpretation number 3 of the Beraita. In brackets, I would like to tell you something. You know, I used to be a teacher, a melamed. Now I'm a lecturer. You know why? Because now I teach in the Zoom. And one of the problems of the Zoom is that when you teach in the class, there is an interaction between the teacher and the students. When you teach in the Zoom, you know, the people sit and listen, and maybe they are shy, or I don't know what, and there's no interaction. I don't agree with this. Therefore, now I allow you to speak. I ask you, I beg you. And now I would like you. This is the Gemara that was taught on that day 25 years ago. Okay. I'm sure that the students thought that everything's okay. But I wanted them to ask a question. And today I would like you to ask a question. What I mean a question is not a question about the first or the second or the third interpretation, a general question about this discussion. When you read this discussion, very good, I'm staying. The chat, someone asked the question. Very good. Who's Benny? Yes. Very good. Yeah. And the question is, of course, why is this important for me? When I learn the Megillah, why is it, if there's one door or two doors, why is it important? Should be a discussion that two of the greatest Amoraim deal with. If they set this room or that room, why is it so important? I would like to tell you something. I asked myself, why wasn't this question asked in the class 25 years ago? And you know what I think the answer is? The answer is that they told themselves, all this is nonsense. It is not important at all. But it's, droshes, the Divrei Chazal Ba'agod, stories. And this is a bad feeling when students feel this way, because I think that this is part of the big question: how do we learn Agadot Chazal? You know that the Rambam has an introduction to Perek Chelek. In Perek Chelek, he has an introduction to the question how we should learn Agadot Chazal. And he says there that there are three groups of ways of learning Agadot Chazal. The first one learns Pshat. This is what is written. You know that there is a Gemara that says, Minayin shakadosh baruch hu mitpalel. Kadosh Baruch Hu prayers. There's also the what he prayers. And if you ask yourself, Kadosh Baruch Hu, why he bought a Sidur in Israel and he began in the Matovu? Of course not. So the question is, what is the meaning? So they learn Pshat, but then many times it seems strange and you don't understand the meaning. And then you say, you know what? They probably understood. I don't understand, but they probably understood. And the Rambam attacks them and says, this is not a way of learning, saying that they understand. You should understand. But then there's another group that learns the same thing, but the conclusion is different, because they learn according to what is written, the Pshat, and they find it very strange. So therefore they say, nonsense. And of course, the Rambam does not agree at all with this way. But then he says there's a third group. And the third group understand that Agadot Chazal were written b'derech mashal v'chida. That means that there is the Pshat, but there is a deeper meaning. And you, when you learn, have to understand the deeper meaning of this Agadah, of this Midrash. What is the idea that was expressed here? And this is the difficult mission that every Agadah, I think, and have to try and solve. What is the idea and under the surface of the Pshat? And now I would like to share with you what I said a day later. I entered the class, and we again saw the three interpretations. And then I asked them, tell me, please, according to Rav, to the first interpretation, what's the criterion What is the criterion of the decision if you sit here or there? How did Achashverosh decide if you sit here, or the people of Achashverosh, and if you sit here or there? What was the criterion? Of course, Kovet, Kesef. Yeah? There were different people. Oh, this Gvir, he sits inside. This one, he sits outside. And discrimination. People are not equal in the regime of Achashverosh. They are different people. And everyone sits in, if he's worthy sitting here, he'll sit here. If he's worthy, sit here, he'll sit there. And now I ask them, let's go and examine the second interpretation. According to Shmuel, was there discrimination? Was there a difference between different kind of people? The answer is, of course, no. No. There was no difference. People were equal. And there was no difference between different people, and that made by the Achashverosh. Okay. But then I asked them, what else can you, and you know what? Now we'll do an agreement. Instead of answering orally, you can write me a chat. And I would like to ask you now the second question. I'm going to stay because you asked the first question, but now I would like to ask a question. And the question is, and what else can you learn about Achashverosh according to the second interpretation? According to the second interpretation, which says that at the beginning you put them here, but there was no place, so they moved to here, and then they moved to there. What can you learn about and Achashverosh? How did he act there? How did he organize the feast? One word, please. What is the word that we can learn about Achashverosh according to Shmuel? What is the word? The word is balagan. You know, at that time, and I don't know if you remember 25 years ago, right? And I don't know if you were in Israel 25 years ago, but there was a sad story in Arad. There was a festival, and there was a great balagan there. And I think 3 young people died there because of the balagan. You know, unfortunately, it's very interesting, but you know, a few days ago, and one of the Gdolim of Bnei Brak passed away. There was a great Levaya, unfortunately. Harav Vosner's son, and great Harav Vosner, of Shevet HaLevi, She'elot U'Tshuvot Shevet HaLevi, who passed away maybe 8 years ago, I don't know, 9 years ago, I think. At the funeral of Harav Vosner, there was also balagan, and 2 young Chassidim and died at the funeral. This is Festival Arad, I told them in Shmuel. This is balagan. Let's go back now to the first interpretation, Rav's interpretation. What is the mark that you will give Achashverosh in organizing the feast? What is the mark? What do you think was the order in the feast? And the answer, of course, is 10. Excellent. Everyone, the people said exactly. There was a list, you know, like you get now. You remember that many years ago there were weddings. You remember? You were invited to weddings years ago, and And then when you enter the hall, there's a list which tells you, Mr. Cohen, you sit at table number 10 together with Mr. Levy. But I don't like Mr. Levy. Who asks you? You have to sit there. This is the feast according to Rav. So what do we understand now? We asked in the beginning, the question is, why is it important? It seems to be so not important. The question whether they said this way or that way. But now we understand that the two descriptions describe two different feasts. But not only that, they describe a different Achashverosh. And why? You know, one of the great heroes of the Megillah, of course, is King Achashverosh. I don't know exactly how many times he's been mentioned in the Megillah, but he has been mentioned many, many times. And if you think about it, you ask yourself, who are you, Achashverosh? What do I mean? What is the meaning of this question? When I mention Haman, there is no doubt that Haman is the wicked. He is Ahmadinejad who says Lashmid, La'arog, La'abed. And when I go to Mordechai and Esther, they are the righteous people. But when I think about Achashverosh, I can draw two different paintings. One of them is that Achashverosh is a clever king. He has, he knows exactly what he wants, but he's more clever than Haman. Haman declares, like Ahmadinejad, I want to kill them. Achashverosh, he acts, he does, but he doesn't speak. He's a wise person. Or maybe Achashverosh, shoite. He's a fool. He's a tippish. Who are you, Achashverosh? So what do you say? And who is Achashverosh? Description number 1 or description number 2? And the answer is, I will say now a joke in Hebrew. I hope you understand jokes in Hebrew. Someone said that Haman, the wicked, was asked, and as a child, מה אתה רוצה להיות כשתהיה גדול? So he answered, תלוי. You mean what is תלוי? תלוי is to be hung. Yeah, but תלוי is also maybe this, maybe there. I don't know. Well, the truth is, or the answer is now, after we looked at this sugya, is that maybe this is the machloket, the dispute between Rav and Shmuel. Rav says that Achashverosh is a clever person. When he organizes a feast, everything is excellent. Everything. But of course, there's discrimination. People are not equal. According to Shmuel, no, Shmuel says, what do you say? You think he's a clever person? He doesn't know even how to organize a small feast. This is a king shoite. There's no place. You have to go here and there to change the place every half an hour. Maybe this is, these two ways are also two ways of the question how to read the Megillah. What do I mean? According to Rav, to the first interpretation, the way that you read the Megillah is that the Megillah teaches you that there's one person, and his name is Haman. He's wicked, he's clear, he declares, he says, I want to kill them. And there are always is another person who is very dangerous because he's clever and he has the same agenda. He wants to kill, but he's more clever. He does not say it loudly. This is one story of the Megillah. Shmuel reads another story. No, many times that there is a leader which is wicked, but and there's another or other leaders which are weak, which are fool. And there are, of course, dangerous, maybe sometimes more than the wicked person, because of these weak persons, he, the wicked, can do what he wants to do. So these are two stories. We forgot the third story, and the third interpretation. The third interpretation says that he put them in one room, ופתח להם שני פתחים, אחד לגינה ואחד בביתן. And I asked them, the students, what do you feel that there's something new in the way of organizing the feast that we didn't find at the two first interpretations? And the answer, of course, is freedom of choice, democracy, the ability that you can choose the place in which you want to sit. According to the first interpretation, Rav's interpretation, of course, you were told this is your place, you have to sit there. According to Shmuel, and theoretically, you can choose, but catch the first chair because there's no place. According to the third interpretation, there's democracy. And I asked them, where is it written in the Megillah that Achashverosh is such a nice person? Where is it written? And I think that I'm sure that the answer is la'asot kirtzon ish va'ish. You see that Achashverosh wants this person to be happy and this person to be happy. Therefore, you want to sit outside where it's windy, tfaddal, and you don't feel well, and you want to sit inside. You can choose. 3 different Achashveroshim, and according to the 3 different the odd here, and Rav, Shmuel, and the Baraita. So what do we find out now? That at the beginning we thought that this is a foolish discussion. It is not important. Why is it important? But now we understand that there is a deeper meaning. Because the question of, describing 3 different descriptions of the feast is describing 3 different Achashveroshim. 25 years ago when I entered the class, I then asked them, now you see that there's 3 different descriptions of Achashverosh. Which Achashverosh is the nicest? And which Achashverosh is the worst? From these 3 interpretations. And I'm sure that now you also agree what they said 25 years ago, that the best, the nicest is number 3. Of course, number 3. You want to sit here, you want to sit there. So you choose, you're the boss. But then I asked them, who's worse? Number 1 or number 2? They couldn't agree. Why? Some of them said, wow, discrimination. שאין נורא, שיש אפליה, שאין שוויון. But then someone said, but here there's a leader. And number 2, there's nothing. There's a balagan. So you see that now this dispute is a basis to a real discussion about maybe nowadays. Someone asked me whether I'm going to speak about these days. Yeah, this is a question not only 2,000 years ago in Shushan and the capital Shushan, but also now these days. If you want me, to show you that this way of understanding the Gemara might be right, I would like to show you a few Gemarot. And I hope, I'm sorry, maybe it's a bit small, I'm sorry, but I will show you 2 points of view of the character of Achashverosh. You know, the Megillah begins by saying, Vayhi b'imei Achashverosh, but then a real Chiddush. Who Achashverosh? What did I think that Achashverosh is not Achashverosh? Reuven is Reuven. Shimon is Shimon. Achashverosh is Achashverosh. Of course, the Megillah continues and says that Vayhi b'imei Achashverosh, who Achashverosh, Amolech me'oded v'kush. But still Chazal were annoyed by the point, by the fact that the Megillah could say, why does the Megillah say, Achashverosh, and who Achashverosh? And there are 2 ways of explaining this repetition. And the one is given in Midrash Rabbah. You know, a very interesting sentence and help me to understand. Vayhi b'imei Achashverosh, there are 2 explanations, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. We'll say the first one. Chad amar. Why is it says, Vayhi b'imei Achashverosh, who Achashverosh? Vayhi b'imei Achashverosh, sheharag ishto, mipnei ohavo. Who Achashverosh, sheharag ohavo, mipnei ishto. Great. What does this sentence want to say? This sentence wants to say, I don't understand this fickle Achashverosh. One day, he kills his wife, Vashti, because of his lover, Ohavo, Haman, Memuchan. A few days later, he kills his friend, Haman, because of his wife Esther. So what does they try to say? I don't understand this person. One day he acts one way. The second day, punkt verkehrt. The other way. I don't understand. This is the same person. This is the same man. And they understand as if the Megillah comes to tell us, yes, you think that this is not the same person. Yeah, this is the same person. One day, this is his character. One day he does one thing, and the day after, the opposite. You think it is not the same person. The Megillah comes to emphasize this is the same person. This is the type. Okay, this is one way of understanding Achashverosh. But there's also another way of understanding given by Chazal in the Gemara Megillah. And the Gemara teaches us that every time in which the Chumash, all the Bible, repeats and says, Vayibimei Ploini, hu Ploini. That means that he was the same from the beginning till the end. For instance, hu Achashverosh, hu berish'o mitchilato ve'ad sofo. He was the same wicked, and he remained in wicked ways from the beginning to the end. And you know, it's very, very interesting. And why? If you say that Achashverosh was the same wicked from the beginning to the end, I don't understand. At the beginning, he was our enemy, and he was a partner together with Haman, and he wanted Lashmid, Larog, Ulabed. But at the end, he was our friend. He was the friend of Mordechai. So why do you say that he was our enemy? He was wicked from the beginning until the end. The answer is, you are wrong. Even in times in which he looks like a friend, he's not a friend. He remained the same, and he remained the same, and the same Achashverosh. He is consistent. And so you see 2 points of view. One of them says, Achashverosh, one day this way, and then that way. And the other interpretation says, no, he has the same agenda from the beginning till the end. Don't be mistaken. And this dispute, and now maybe I will show you a proof about our interpretation about the dispute between Rav and Shmuel, because at the same page, there is another dispute between Rav and Shmuel. Achashverosh didn't make only one feast. He did two. The first one was of the people of the kingdom, even the people from afar. But afterwards, the second one was a feast for the people of Shushan, his city, the capital city. And the question is it a wise way to first make a feast for the people from afar and afterwards making a feast for the people of Shushan? Is it clever? And the tshuva is machloket. I had, unfortunately, one of my people in the Kehillah who passed away. Every day I teach after the tefillah a short halakha. And usually I try to tell a little story and ask them, what do you think is the halakha? Mutar or asur? He used to say every day, machloket. Machloket. 80% of the days he was right. Yeah, of course, we are people of machlokes. This is also a machloket, and between Rav and Shmuel, famous, our fellows Rav and Shmuel, and there's a machloket. And why? Because one of them says that Achashverosh was a clever king. This is Rav. And Shmuel says, no, he was a foolish king. And they explain themselves. And they say, that the one who said that Achashverosh was a clever king, Shafir Avad, believe me that it's written here. I assume that it's difficult a bit to read. And Shafir Avad Kariv Rechiki Beresh is of the opinion that he did well by first inviting the outlanders to the feast. Why? This is also connected maybe to these days. Because Bnei Matya, the people of the city, for he could appease the people of his city and of his own city anytime he wished, since they were always nearby. The people of my city, I could give them something, a job. I could give them a street. I could give them a neighborhood. Everything. No problem. The problem is the outlanders, the people from far away. Therefore, says who? Rav. That he was very clever that he did so. Because first you have to have good relations with the outlanders. Afterwards, with your neighbors, it's very easy. But then the other one said, and this is Shmuel, and no, Tipesha, he's a foolish king. And why? Because he should have invited the people of his own city first. Why? So if and they rebelled against him, who will stay and be and these and resistance of Shushan would have stood by and support him? Who will be the supporters if there will be a rebellion? Your people. So, fool, why do you go first to the people who live, I don't know, hundreds of kilometers far from here? What do we see? Rav Shmuel leshitatam. Rav thinks that Achashverosh is a clever king. And when he organizes a feast, everything's excellent. When he decides and big decisions, like the decision with who will be in coalition or opposition, he knows what to do. Shmuel says, what do you say? Nonsense. This is a tipesh. This is a foolish king. He does not decide the right decisions, and he don't know how to organize even one fist. Let's go further, and I will try to give you another proof to this interpretation. Chazal deal with another question. And the question is, why was Achashverosh called Achashverosh? In other words, what is the meaning of the name Achashverosh? You know how many answers are there? 4. The first 2, and Rav and Shmuel. And I would like to focus, of course, on these 2 interpretations. And despite the fact that there are also 2 other interpretations, and let's see. Achashverosh says Rav, and it means why is he called Achashverosh? Says Rav this following interpretation: because Achashverosh is Ach Shel Rosh, the brother of the head. And who, the brother of the head, and Ben Gilo Shel Rosh. Ben Gilo is not the same age. And as Rashi says, one of the same character of the head. He, Achashverosh, had the same character as the person who was called the head. Who is the head? Achiv Shel Rosh, Avichiv Shel Nebuchadnezzar HaRasha. Wicked Nebuchadnezzar, he was called the head and is wicked, and they have the same character. And why is it called? Because in Sefer Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar is called Ant Hu Resha Didehaba. This is in Aramaic. Ant Atahu Resha Didehaba. Rosh Azahav, the head of the gold. Therefore, and Nebuchadnezzar was called the head. Achashverosh is his brother. His brother, the same character. And why? Rav continues and says, because he, that means Nebuchadnezzar, wicked Nebuchadnezzar, who bikesh la'arog, he wanted to kill. And Achashverosh also bikesh, and Nebuchadnezzar killed, he bikesh la'arog. Achashverosh wanted to kill. And at the end of the story, of course, they were not killed, Baruch Hashem. Bikesh. Okay. And he continues. Another thing, let's skip 2 lines. Shmuel, of course. Shmuel also gives an answer. And what is Shmuel's answer? You know, and Achashverosh means hushcheru. They were blackened. What do you mean? And hushcheru pnehem shel Israel beyamav keshulei kdera. You see this glass? This is, you don't see it, right? Oh, now you see it. This is the bottom. And what is Ishcheru? And In his time, the faces of the Jews, they suffered. So the faces of the Jews became as dark as the bottom of a pot. Okay. Third interpretation, Achashverosh, kol shezochro omer ach lerosho. And every man who just remembers, oh, Achashverosh, where is me? Ach lerosho. Achashverosh. Fourth interpretation, Reb Chanina אמר שנעשו הכל רשין. רשין means poor. שנאמר וישם המלך אחשוורוש מס. I don't know if this meaning, minhag, is also in Yerushalayim, but I heard a few times of Ranana, you know that we have to lehakot et Haman, tar, 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 tar. But there is also a meaning at the end of the Megillah, in which it is written that Achashverosh some mas. The people say, ooh, but you don't have to follow this meaning in Yerushalayim. So he was a poor. Rashim means poor. Here also, I feel that we have to ask not 4 questions about each one of the interpretations, but a general question. Tell me, what is this discussion? Same thing in Yerushalayim, also in Shul. Minig Yerushalayim is very important. Okay. I think here also a general question should be asked. What do you mean, why did... So the meaning of the question, why is his name Achashverosh, is his father in his bris, and Ikare Shemo beIshmael, and Achashverosh. You know, you are Anshe Yerushalayim. I want to tell you a story about that I heard once from one of the Gdoilim of Yerushalayim. HaGoyen Reb Shlomo Zalman Noyerbach Zecher Tzadik Livracha. He once told a story that there was a mohel that came to a circumstance.
לא שומעים הרב.
סליחה, כבוד הרב. Can you open your microphone? כן. Now it's all right.
So when didn't you hear me? From the beginning of the shir?
No. Just a few minutes.
From the beginning of the joke?
Yes,
okay, I'll tell you a joke. No, the question, maybe I'll begin in this point. I said that I think that all this discussion is very strange. What is the meaning of this discussion? Why was Achashverosh named Achashverosh? Or what is the meaning of the name Achashverosh? So what is the question? The question is that the father of Achashverosh and the circumcision of Achashverosh said, Ikareh Shemo B'Yisrael Achashverosh. And then I wanted to tell you a joke. No, it's before Purim. I have to tell a joke. But the joke, it's a very important joke, because I heard this joke from HaGoyen Reb Shlomo Zalman Noyerbach Zecher Tzadik Livracha. And he had told that once there was a moil who came to a bris. Okay, there was the bris, and there it says, Elokeinu Elokei Avoteinu kayemet hayeled hazeh la'aviv u'limo v'yikareh shemo b'Yisrael. And then the father said, oh, I forgot to decide with my wife what is the name. I forgot. So the mother said, okay, go ask your wife. Okay. He went to his wife, but then there was a discussion of maybe 10 minutes. The moel became nervous. So finally he says, Ikareh shmo b'Yisrael Avrom. Okay, 2 minutes later, the father comes back and he tells, so he asks him, what did you decide? The father answered, we decided to call him Avram. So the Moel says, I've already declared that his name is Avram. So he said, what? You have Ruach HaKodesh? He said, Ma pitom. I saw that the father is such a terach, so his son should be Avraham. And this said Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. So what is the question? That Achashverosh really then said, a droshe, and said, mother and me decided to call Achashverosh because, decide one of these four answers. Of course not. And here also, I want to tell you something in a point of view of someone who dealt with education and taught teenagers for a few years. I have no doubt that if you teach this sugya in 10th grade without explaining the deeper meaning of this discussion, they will say it's nonsense. They will say, well, you want to tell me that the father of Achashverosh and called his son because of one of these four reasons? And tell me, in what language was it? In Ivrit? It was in Persian. What was it? It's nonsense. So what is the meaning of this and of all this discussion? There's no doubt that Chazal does not mean to ask the question, why, or what is the meaning of the name? Who are you, Achashverosh? The name is the character, is the type. Who are you, Achashverosh? And I want to say, they tried to say it by describing or explaining the name. But they didn't want to explain the name. But Achashverosh's father was a Novi. And he was a prophet, and he knew that 30 years ago the faces of the people of Israel will be blackened. So what now, in this point of view, let's try to understand the two first interpretations by Rabbi Shmuel. What does Rav says? Rav says that the name Achashverosh means he's the brother of the head. Who is the head? Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar. What is the name of Nebuchadnezzar? He says, Nebuchadnezzar Harasha. In other words, what title do we have to give to what Achashverosh did? He is Achashverosh Harasha. We are used to Haman Harasha. But Rav says, no, don't make a mistake. This is Achashverosh, also the wicked. And now he says something very strange, I think. He says that Nebuchadnezzar harag, ve'Achashverosh bikesh la'arog. He wanted to kill. Sorry, Rav, didn't you read the Megillah? In my Megillah, who initiated this plan of killing the Jews? It was Haman. It was not Achashverosh. Why do you say who bikesh la'arog? And the answer, no doubt, it will be given by Achashverosh is, you think so? He is the king. He is the king. And nothing can be done if the king doesn't want it to be done. I heard once about a story about someone and that his mother wakes him up in the morning, 8 o'clock, and she tells him, you have to go to school. He says, I don't want to go to school. The students, they laugh at me, and they. But then she tells him, אבל אתה המנהל. You're the principal. Achashverosh is the king. Says Rav, what do you think? That something can be made without the emperor? Without Achashverosh? He wanted to kill. Okay. So this is Rav. and Rav who says that and the feast was organized, that he was a clever, and that he was part of the plan. He was wicked from the beginning till the end. But then comes Shmuel. And I must say that when I first read Shmuel's interpretation, I didn't understand two words. I don't understand why did he add these two words. שהושחרו פניהם של ישראל בימיו כשולי קדירה. Why did he add כשולי קדירה? שולי קדירה means that when you put a pot on the fire, it gets here at the bottom, it gets blackened. What do you want to tell me? I don't know what is what is black? Maybe black like the road, black like the night. Why black? This reminds me that many, many years ago, when we were in the army of the Tiranut, and as one of the commanders wanted us and lishtof kelim b'Shabbat, and we didn't want. We wanted to do it Motzei Shabbat, but then the person who was in charge told us, "Aber ze kipuach nefesh, the kipuach nefesh." And why is it so important to tell us that the black here was like the black that was caused by the fire that the pot was put on the fire? I feel that what he wants to say is that, I went and bought a new pot, a new clean pot. Then I gave it to my wife. She's an expert on making chunt, an expert. And she put it on the fire. And I come after 2 hours, and chas v'sholem, I tell my wife, my wicked wife, what did you do? You took a new pot and you made it black. What did you do? Of course, this is foolish. Of course, the purpose was to cook something. In our world, sometimes you want to make A and B happens. What can you do? So therefore, Shmuel says, what do you think, Rav? He made it purposely. He wanted to kill? No, he wanted to make a chunt. Unfortunately, when you make chunt, so what can you do? The bottom of the pot gets black. You want me to prove this interpretation? And Rav says, Hu bikesh laharog, active. But when Shmuel says that we suffered, he doesn't say that Achashverosh did something, but Hushcheru pneihem shel Israel, in passive. He didn't do it purposely. It happened. How did it happen? He's a foolish king. When he wants to make a feast, there's a balagan. When he makes decisions, there's a balagan. When there is a balagan and anarchy, bad things happen. So, Lashmid la'arog or la'abed, one nation in his kingdom. So you see here, now you understand that by trying to explain the meaning of the name of Achashverosh, they do much more than that. They try to teach us, to show us who is Achashverosh. I will maybe we'll finish in another thing. The Gemara Megillah, and in one page in Daf Yud Aleph, there are many ptichtot. And ptichtot. What is ptichta? Ptichta is a sort of introduction. when our sages, when they wanted to give an introduction to something, for instance, here to learning Megillah, they gave one point of view by importing one verse, pasuk, from somewhere else in the Bible and using this pasuk in order to give a point of view and about the subject that we are going to learn now. And you can see that there are more than 10 ptichtot. And I would like to look at two, and they are two ptichtot of two very interesting sages. We are brothers-in-law, maybe the most famous brothers-in-law in Shas, and Rabbi Yochanan veResh Lakish. And look, please, here in source 19. Rabbi Yochanan patach la pitcha leha parshat mehacha. Rabbi Yochanan began petach, and he began the discussion about Megillat Esther by mehacha, from here. And he says, he brings, you see, pasuk from Tehillim. We say it every Shabbat. Zachar chasdo ve'emunato lebeit Israel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu remembered the people of Israel. Ra'u kol afsei haaretz et Yeshuat Elokeinu. All the people saw the salvation of Israel. Matai ra'u kol afsei haaretz et Yeshuat Elokeinu. Bimei Mordechai ve'Esther. Okay. Yeah. Resh Lakish gives another introduction. Ari nohem vedov shokek moshel rasha al amda. Ari, the lion, Nebuchadnezzar HaRasha. You remember. Dov ze Achashverosh. And why is Achashverosh compared to a bear? Because says Resh Lakish, Ki Tane Rav Yosef, Parsiim, they eat and drink like a bear. They have hair like a bear. And the Elai Menucha, they're not the nervous. And Moshel Rasha, זה המן. על עם דל, אלו ישראל שהם דלים מן המצוות. I'll try to explain. I want to ask you a question. Oh, I didn't bring something. Okay. And just a moment. Maybe I have it here. Okay. Just a moment. Half a minute. And I will. Sorry. Here I am. Just a moment. I would like to ask you a question, and I will tell you what is the question. You know, when I try, okay, when I try to describe the Megillat Esther, I would say this way. The beginning is going down. Lashmid, laharog, uleabed. The other part, the second part of the story is Baruch Hashem going up. Nafochu, and going up. LaYehudim aita ora v'simcha v'satzar mika. Okay. Now I would like to ask you a question. What is more important? The first part of the story, or the second part of the story? And I'm sure that you are a bit politicians, and you will say, of course, both of them. Let's look again at the ptichtot of Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish. Resh Lakish says, Zachar chasdo ve'emunato lebeit Yisrael. Ra'u kol afsei haaretz et Yeshuat Elokeinu. Everything saw the salvation of the people of Israel. There's no doubt that Resh Lakish and gives focus on what? On the salvation, on the great salvation, the second part of the story. And why? Why was it such a special salvation? Because, we live now in times of internet. And, in half a minute, something will happen. At the second part of the world, you know about it right online. But, at the times of Mordechai and Esther, things could happen 10 kilometers from you, and you know nothing about it. But the salvation of the Jewish people at the times of Mordechai and Esther, everyone knew about. Why? So Rabbi Yochanan is so impressed by the salvation that he says, "Wow, such a great salvation." Rabbi Yochanan, the Baal Tshuva, says, "I'm not so impressed from the second part of the story. I was impressed for the first part of the story." You saw what happened at the first part of the story. We had whom? Achashverosh, the Persian. What types. They ruled about us. They were our rulers. That shows us that never say never. Never be so sure that everything is, we are the chosen nation. Nothing is going to happen to us. And I will go to a funeral. Everything will say there. Akol will say there. Says Resh Lakish, no. Now I understand that I have to act correctly. And only if I act correctly, things will be okay. But sometimes, we can go down. But then he adds another thing. And he says, Al Amdal, Elu Yisrael shehem dalim mina mitzvot. And he says another thing. You know why did it happen? Why we went down? Because we didn't fulfill the mitzvot. How do you know, Rish Lakish, that this is the reason? Who told you? I think that Rish Lakish will answer, it is written specifically in the Megillah. Where is it written? I will tell you. We know, I said that, the first part is going down, and then Nafochon going up. Rega. What caused this change? Why was the Nafochu? Because Esther tells Mordechai, Lechu, lechnos et kol haYehudim, Achdut, be united, and Ma betzumu, prayer, tshuvi. This caused the change. That means that before that, things wasn't so good. So Rish Lakish about tshuva says the change was because of tshuva. Therefore, and the fall was because Am Yisrael hayu dalim mitzvot. So you can see that Rish Lakish and the two brothers-in-law, they read the same Megillah. Rabbi Yochanan looks on the second part and wow, he's so happy that there was a great salvation. And his brother-in-law, Rish Lakish, reads the same Megillah and becomes very sad that he read that it is possible that the Jewish nation can reach to a point in which there is a gzera lehashmin, laharog, u'la'abed. The same Megillah, 2 points of view. Again, what we tried to do today is at the same time to do two things. First one is to learn Megillat Esther. And we saw that despite the fact that we know this Megillah many years from the kindergarten, there are two ways, more than two ways, there are a few ways of reading this Megillah. And we saw there are two ways of understanding the character of the hero, or maybe one of the greatest heroes of the Megillah, Achashverosh. And of course, we might take this story even to our days. There are also different points of view of concentrating on the salvation or the fall. But at the same time, we try today to do another thing and to try and look how we should read and learn Agadot Chazal. To tell you the truth, and nowadays we say in Hebrew, Gilui Naot. I don't know to learn in this way every Agadah in Chazal. No. Some of the Agadot, I open the Kidvei Rav Kook or Amaral or someone else or Marsha who explained, but some I don't understand even afterwards. But when some of them I see and understand, I can prove there are two levels. And the level of the pshat is good for small kids. But it doesn't give us, it doesn't teach us. Well, what does it want to say? Okay, it's very nice. But what is the meaning of this story? And when we try to understand the deeper meaning, it gives us another story, another different points of view. I feel there is something different. It was a real pleasure for me to be together with almost 40 people and 9 o'clock in the morning, and 9 o'clock in the morning, coming together and to the dining room, to the salon from the, and to learn together. Thank you very much. Happy Purim, and I wish that Corona ends, and maybe sometime I'll come to visit you in Yerushalayim if I will be invited. Thank you very much. Purim Sameach.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.